So without further ado, we can call the meeting to order at 6:04 on the computer here. And thank you, Nancy, for manning the Zoom operations at Holly Hall.
Yes, you're welcome.
Do we have a motion and do we need a motion for that? Just to start the meeting? Maybe we don't.
No.
Okay. Public comment period. Are there any participating guests to the meeting that would like to add to our agenda or comment in general? I used to be a teacher, so they say wait for a good 5 seconds, a solid 5 seconds, in case somebody might be hesitating. I think we did that. We will move on. There don't seem to be any additions of items to the agenda that I'm aware of. So we will proceed. Number 4, review and approval of the minutes from the May 11 meeting. Any comments to those minutes?
They looked good to me.
If they appear to be in good order, we could take a motion to approve the minutes and a second.
All motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have the minutes from the meeting of May 11th approved. Thank you. I am unaware of any correspondence, though there may have been some from the NOMO May activities and also Green Up Day. Is anyone else aware of any correspondence?
No.
Nope.
All right. Well, if there is, and Carolyn brings it to our attention, we won't get to it until sometime in September.
Carolyn usually does give us an update on Green Up Day and how many bags and how many pounds. But I assume if none of us have received that by email, that we don't know what those numbers are.
Yeah. Is it my understanding that Carolyn is not going to be in attendance tonight? Is that sort of a
Right.
sudden? Okay. Because I didn't get notice, and I'd be happy to obviously conduct the meeting. I just on the spot. Here we go. Okay. Old business. Conservation Commission membership. I think we are one member stronger. And I saw some correspondence. What was it involving? I'm trying to remember. John, was it a particular you sat in on? Was it a committee or?
Yes. Actually, it's on the agenda down a ways. If we can want to
We'll
wait.
get to it then.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we included that. Okay. So I believe I saw a posting on Front Porch Forum. I think it was from Carolyn to again see if we had any interest in adding that one more member to our ranks, but again, nothing that we are aware of at this point. Updating wildlife maps. I guess we have sort of a final report from the Senior Independent Study student write-up, but I don't have that available for me to present. Is anybody else aware of that?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up now.
All right, thank you, Helen.
Carolyn sent it as a PDF to all of us on June 4th.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
it must be
okay.
yeah, on June 4th. Here is a final report from mid-student Lauren Gremery for the independent study she completed. I admit that I have not looked at it. It's 25 pages long. In the text of her email, she was impressed, Carolyn was impressed with all of the links that Lauren had made of people to talk to, different community members who are interested, how to link it to the town plan. Now I'm just looking at the report. Outlining the goals that have been laid out for this project, mapping the relevant areas within Bristol. So she included quite a few maps showing different habitats, different roads, different forest types, and how that might relate to wildlife tracking. She reports on the field trip she did with Sophie Mascowita. I might be mispronouncing her name. The woman that we hired from, Kristen, you'll remember her name. I don't remember. It's a tracking.
Tracking connection.
Tracking connections, right. So she is reporting on what they found during that trip. And then she has a really nice literature review on habitat connectivity and why that matters in terms of genetic connectivity between populations and the role of corridors, wildlife corridors, or any kind of corridors in maintaining that kind of connection. She also writes about how to use camera trapping and bat detecting as a way to determine who's where in the greater world. She has a great map, a great figure that shows all of the different resources that can be tapped to update the wildlife mapping. It's an amazing, colorful, balloon-filled diagram with about 30 different resources that we can utilize to get some habitat connectivity and wildlife crossing. Then she's describing what Carolyn will contribute, what Alexis will contribute. There's a new member of the environmental studies program who has done work in the national parks, and apparently she's willing to help out. Jeff Howarth is a professor of geography and knows a lot about GIS and layering maps, and he's offered to help. And then she talks about the various courses that will take place in the near future that will add to the data. It's an amazing document. You should definitely take a look at it. I'm on page 18 now, so it just keeps going. So maybe we should all vow to look at this before our September meeting, which is when Alexis will be attending to tell us what her plans are for being involved in this project.
That sounds good. Yeah, I looked at it and it's really well done.
Yeah.
It's thorough.
Yeah, it's a significant piece of work. And I agree. I think it deserves some further discussion. And I guess I'm not familiar totally with the whole big picture of where this is headed, but it strikes me as something that at some point would be worth sharing with some of the other town committees, like the planning department, and because there's a lot of useful information on there that folks like that might find useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm putting in the minutes that we will all read the report and be prepared to talk about it at our September meeting.
Sounds like a good suggestion, Helen. I must admit that I overlooked that as it arrived Sunday, and I probably jumped into, I was away Monday, so I was probably playing a little bit of catch up. I did happen to read Kristen's Sycamore Park draft, though, when we get to that. Okay, any more comments on the wildlife map and the final report? All right, let's move on. We have parks updates for Eagle Memorial, Sycamore, and Saunders River access. Sometimes we have the Bristol Parks person that helps us get some.
Is it Zachary, I think?
Is it Zach? Yeah, he's new enough that I cannot recall his name. But does anybody notice he's not in attendance tonight, right? I'm gonna check the,
It's not.
no, okay. All right, I'm going back and forth to the agenda.
We should make sure that he's notified of our meetings. I mean, it could be that he actually didn't know that we were meeting.
Well, that's a
Receive the
good
agenda.
point.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Alex used to be on our email list, and so he was aware of the meetings. But,
They did get an agenda. Bristol Rec got an agenda.
Right, okay.
I'm wondering if anybody can look back at what Carolyn sent out. So maybe we just have to make a note in the minutes to add Zach to the agenda that goes out from Carolyn.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't,
he did receive it. Bristol Rec Department does receive a copy of our agenda.
Okay.
He
Just
doesn't
wondering.
have he doesn't have a specific email at Bristol Rec. It's just to Bristol Rec.
Okay.
Do you know if he knows of the history of the person in that position visiting the parks on a regular basis and reporting to us?
I think he does. I mean, that's
Okay.
why he attended a few, maybe the last meeting or the meeting before that. So, but we could check in with Meredith and let her know.
All right.
If we're still on park updates, I do have a park update for Eagle.
Sure. Go ahead, Kristen.
So the Eagle Park Universal Fishing Platform has been redesigned. There has been a design for the repair of the Universal Fishing Platform. And the bid walkthrough was this week of potential contractors. And the bid opening will be Thursday, June 22nd at 10 o'clock at Holly Hall. And that is open to the public if anyone wants to go. There were a couple of topics that came up during the bid walkthrough, and they wanted our feedback on the Conservation Commission. Valerie wanted our feedback. One point is that when they reconstruct the pathway down to the platform, they will be removing boulders along the boulders that set off the parking area from the perennial garden. They're going to be removing those boulders to reuse in other places in the construction and replacing that with a split rail fence. And that fence will further discourage people from walking through the garden to get down to the path, as sometimes happens or used to happen in the past more than it does recently. And when they're working at the base of the perennial garden, they're going to be impacting the plantings. And so what they suggested is that either the Conservation Commission could remove those perennials and pot them up temporarily and store them on site in the shade and water them. Or we can be there when they're constructing and kind of receive those plants from the construction crew in a sort of bucket brigade, if you will. But either way, we're going to have to move some of those perennials out of the construction zone.
Do you have any idea how many, what, half of them?
It could be up to half, yes. I
Wow.
didn't attend the walkthrough, unfortunately, so I don't have the details, but Valerie's email just says that removal and rebuilding of the concrete walkway will impact the adjacent plantings. So we're to remove some of those and temporarily. The construction will take about a month from start to finish, and it could happen somewhere in a time window between August 1st and October 1st. So they needed to reply to the potential bidders pretty quickly this week, and so I did commit that I personally would show up and that we would maybe get some citizen volunteers through Front Porch Forum to help with this, because I knew that I couldn't bring this to the commission until tonight and get your feedback, but hopefully the commission as a body could be available to help deal with the perennials.
Do we have a set date to remove the plants yet?
We don't. We only know that construction, according to the bid documents, has to occur, and according to the permits as well, has to occur between August 1st and October 1st. So as soon as the contractor is selected, we'll have a better sense for when they aim to schedule the work to be done.
Okay.
So do you think a series of the timing of events might be that they choose the contractor to do the work?
Mhm.
People can go out and with the contractor to determine what the what plants, how much of the garden needs to be dug up,
Yeah,
and then we proceed from there.
correct.
So we just need those dates of when the contractor will be out there.
Yep.
To see.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to need a lot of pots. A
The,
lot of pots and a lot of
are
soil.
they gonna provide it? Do we need to provide them?
I have a plan of action. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So with my truck, I can bring up probably somewhere in the order of at least 10, maybe as many as 20 of they're called 1-gallon pots. We can always trim down some of the plantings, root balls if we need to. Again, I didn't have a chance to attend that work day this year, so I'm not as familiar. I'm harking back to 2 years ago. There's sort of the relatively flat level spot, and then it drops off down to the platform. So I'm guessing that it's probably more on that slope that we need to remove those. And if there is a way to find out what the scope of those are, we could get up there, pot them up, put them in my truck, I'll bring them back to my house. I'll water them, take care of them for the interim period. Because if they're going to be working there for a month, we got to move them off site, I think, for the ease of watering. And then my second question was the split rail fence, is that included in the bid then?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what I would think might be this most straightforward way to deal with the perennial situation.
I like
That would
that
be-
idea,
That
John.
sounds good.
Much easier to handle the watering, as you mentioned, and that would be wonderful if you could do
Right.
that.
Kristen, can you remind me when the bid opening is in Holly Hall? It's June?
June 22nd, a Thursday.
Yep.
At 10 o'clock at Holly Hall.
Okay. Okay.
The other item of note, which doesn't require any feedback from us necessarily, is that when they're constructing, they're going to shut off the parking lot, but they still would like for people to be able to have access to the park outside of the construction area. And so Eric Coda, the road commissioner, suggested there is another fence gate a little bit toward Bristol Falls or Bartlett Falls from Eagle Park. And so folks could maybe park along the edge of the road and go through that gate and access the greater area of the park just outside the construction fencing that will be established around the path and the platform and the parking lot.
Does that sort of bisect the parking? Is that roughly the sort of the idea?
Well, actually, I think they're suggesting for ease of the contractors, they would completely shut off the current gravel parking area. And what I'm talking about is parking alongside, but off of Lincoln Road. I don't know if you know it, but as you're approaching the parking lot on your right-hand side, coming up the hill, there's a gate there, a locked gate, and it swings open. And that's what Eric Coda was suggesting could be the alternate access into the park interior, but away from the parking lot and away from the platform and the pathway.
In your estimation, Kristen, do you feel like that's pretty safe option because of the speed of traffic going up Route 17?
Well, there was a reply from.
Or not 17, I meant to say Lincoln.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think it may have been Eric Coda that replied his concern about traffic on Lincoln Road, which has been a recurring issue even down at Bartlett's Falls when there's a lot of people parked along the road. So I think that may still be something that people are going to figure out, that the select board is going to figure out between now and when construction happens. Just so we all are aware, it's likely that that parking lot will be shut off from public use during construction.
And somebody,
There's quite a lot of background noise from someone.
if people can turn off their microphones.
Well, I think it's coming from the main office with Nancy.
Right, but maybe if you can turn yours off until needed, that would be great. It's kind of hard to hear.
Kristen, I think you mentioned the big window of when the project could occur. Did you give an estimate of how long they think it will actually take once they start to complete the project?
Yeah, the contractors that were at the walkthrough estimated that the project would take about a month from start to finish. So once we have a sense for when they will start, it should take about a month.
Do we want to further this discussion on Eagle Park?
One thought I just had was that if this happens during the time that we're taking hiatus as a commission, then I think we're just going to have to coordinate as citizens of Bristol over email between July and August and September.
Right.
That's when this is going to happen, and we're not meeting regularly during that time.
Right, that's a good point. But as long as we can all be emailable and agree on a time to meet there and do the work, I think that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen. That's a lot of good information to work from. Let's see. Next, if we're not hearing anything further about the Saunders River access related to Sycamore, an email which was right next to that other one which I missed on Sunday. I guess it's related to the park brochures and access to for a church group. I was just picking up a little bit of the background on that with that the email that Carolyn sent out. Is anybody more familiar with that?
Just from what I read in the email from a woman who was disappointed that there were no maps on the kiosk and that there's no trail signs, and therefore it's easy to get lost.
It is a little bit of a maze in there.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. Do we regularly have maps there, or is there one that's behind the plexiglass of the kiosk? I don't know.
There was a map behind the plexiglass. I don't know if Alex and or Freddie and or Zach have gotten to this task, but there was discussion that they were gonna spruce up the kiosk there and replace and reprint all those materials. So I don't know if maybe if they're in that process, they may have taken down those maps.
I know Zach had mentioned doing that
Yeah,
a meeting or two ago, 2 meetings probably.
right.
So,
I have a stash of the brochures and I can refill the box with more map brochures. They're just a trifold map that shows the geomorphic trail that we have there. Not all of the markers though are probably able to be found easily with the growth of Japanese knotweed. But
Oh, that's right. I do remember some of those markers. They're numbered, right?
yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the nature of that park is just very challenging, and I think it's not probably the best choice for that particular group. I certainly wouldn't want to discourage them, but I think that as I said, it's got some challenges.
I mean, we do have a Bristol Trail Network that they could avail themselves of, which is an established and maintained trail.
Right. And some pretty flat, straightforward sections, particularly around the high school with easy access.
Yep.
Well, I
Oh,
suppose.
Kristen, I misunderstood what you were saying, Kristen. I thought you were suggesting that maybe Bristol Trail Network would take on the task of mapping the trail. You're not saying that. Okay.
No, I'm just saying that there are other options in the town of Bristol for a marked trail with that is regularly maintained.
Uh-huh.
And we may not have the resources at the present time to improve upon or maintain a trail system at Seymour Park.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a reprieve with that frost that knocked out some knotweed, but this stuff is vigorous, and everything on my property came right back with no problem. So I can see the appeal, especially if you can get through those sort of narrow trails to the river, because that's not, well, there are sections that are a little bit they're not as dense with knotweed by any stretch. But if you go down on South Street, there's access to the river. It's part of the Bristol Trail Network. That's an undulating trail, so again, maybe not as easily navigated with certain groups. Well, how do we want? Do we want to have? Let's make a note that we can connect back with. I think was her name Ruth.
Trying to find the email.
Peggy Rush. So that came from Porter. And
there's a Ruth on there.
yeah, there was some, I thought I asked Ruth for your contact. All right, that I picked up. Yeah. So that was just that was an intermediary. Okay. I think that's the thing to do is I will send an email to Peggy giving giving a summation of what we discussed. And I'll just make 3 points. One is there are some challenges with Sycamore Park. And as far as just getting around the park because of the knotweed, which obscures some of the markings. That's point number one. Point number two will be that we suggest that there might be an alternative choice to use the Bristol Trail Network. And number three, if they do decide that they would like to still pursue Sycamore Park, that we have a member of the Bristol Conservation Commission that will bring some brochures to make them available at the kiosk. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Well, it also might be a good idea to put follow-up whenever our next meeting would be with Zach to see if the kiosk is being updated, like apparently was being suggested with the map or whatever.
Yep.
I can follow up with him because I was gonna suggest doing that when we were at when we did the apple trees, and I noticed that there was nothing really in there. It was kind of looking like it needed an update. And then Zach said he was gonna do that, so I can ask him, see what his plan is and if they need any assistance and stuff.
That'd be great.
Good.
All right, I think we've covered that one. So brochures, just making notes of what I just said I would include in the email. All right, let me swing back to the agenda. Okay,
There's
so
one more preceding that, which was, should we schedule a work day at Sycamore Park?
yes, thank you, Helen. Well,
What would we
given that
do?
we're going to be not convening for the month of July and August, what are people's thoughts? Do we try to see if we can do it sooner than later?
What would we do at the workday? What needs to be done?
Yeah, it sounds like we need maybe to communicate with Zach and get a list together before we organize a workday.
Yeah.
Nancy, you were saying you're going to be touching base with Zach? Would you like to discuss that and maybe report back?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll check in with Zach, determine possible, maybe within the month, to get out to Sycamore Park and do a little bit. We were very successful last year. I enjoyed that. There was a certain focus around the pollinator garden, right, Helen?
Yeah, we did a lot of weeding.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at it this spring, so I don't know what the status is. Has anyone
Yeah.
seen it recently?
and we put up the birdhouses as well, and we don't need to. We could probably just check on those. So I think, I'm not so sure what the scope would be, but we'll hear back from Nancy as to what Zach thinks. I know it was discussed at prior meetings too, so it was just kind of pinning it down.
I'll run over and take a look at the pollinator garden too and see what the status is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Helen. C, under the park update, says role of Bristol Conservation Commission in managing / advising on park matters. Does anybody know what that pertains to?
Yes, hold on. Conjuring up. Yes. So this is in reference to Golden Knight is proposing writing a proposal to get ADA accessibility at all of the parks in Bristol. And we wondered what our role is in guiding that proposal or guiding the projects that might be resulting from that. I think we were worried that she would write a proposal that would be funded, that would be constructed without consulting the Bristol Conservation Commission, and we might have ideas about ways to preserve habitats or yeah, that's what I'm remembering. So I wrote Valerie, so that, hold on a second and I'll see if I can find that. I wrote Valerie asking her that question. So hold on one second.
I'm going to step in for a moment, Helen, while you're looking that up.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we certainly have a role, and obviously the select board as well, especially it involves some levels of construction and also some sort of funds to expend. So I'm sure we would be involved, and that probably would be helpful for having some statement from the commission that Porter could include with the grant. What do you think, Kristen? You're a little more familiar with some of those details.
Yeah, I mean, the Bristol Conservation Commission, together with the Select Board and the Bristol Rec Department, collectively, jointly manage all the town parks. And so if there were to be a proposal of some trail construction or ADA trail construction, it's my opinion that the Bristol Conservation Commission should be consulted along with those two other bodies. And any grant that went in would need select board approval, prior approval, and so that process would spur folks to talk to both the Conservation Commission and the Rec Department as part of that process. I think there are some, when we need to balance some of the, it's written into the Sycamore management plan, for example, we want to encourage public access and especially access for those who are differently able. We also need to balance that against the sensitive resources at our town parks. And so I think that's the role that we play as a Conservation Commission, is helping that dialogue, right? And thinking about where do we want to place an ADA accessible trail in such a way that it doesn't disturb the sensitive resources in that park.
Yeah, also I would imagine that there's resources financially that you have to be a little conscious of as well. So let's say, thinking of 3 parks, Sycamore is probably a little bit easier to manage with an ADA situation. I would think Eagle has the platform, so depending on how extensive you wanted to get, that may be already in play. And yet Memorial might be the most difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And
For
that
sure.
was, as I recall at our May meeting, Memorial was a concern about the prospect of what a handicap accessible would mean to big changes there. So that was a concern.
Yeah.
Memorial Park, I think the majority of that park would not be suitable for ADA, and that was the finding of Green Mountain Engineering, who did a review of the park for the potential for ADA accessible or compliant trails. But there were sections right near the parking lot and where it was feasible. And I think those are the areas that maybe Porter is keying in on as part of a larger proposal.
Helen, you started the conversation. Were you in touch with Porter? How did you pick up
No.
on these threads?
At the last meeting, we mentioned, maybe Carolyn mentioned, that Porter was planning to write a proposal to get ADA accessibility at the parks. And it raised the question of what is our role? Do we need to read these proposals and approve them? Should she consult with us? And unfortunately, I cannot find the email that I sent to Valerie. I'll keep looking for it.
All right.
And her response, yeah, I just can't find it.
All right. Well, I think that it's going to be sort of a to be continued.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah.
So, any more discussion in terms of the park updates and specifically the question of the role of Bristol Conservation Commission?
It sounded like Porter was going to be at the September meeting, and so we would presumably find out a lot more at that point.
Yeah, I think that sounds good, John. And then I'm not sure what the timing is of the grant writing deadlines, but Porter's pretty good about communication, so I'm fairly confident that she will keep us abreast. So yeah, let's push this off to September. And as John suggests that we probably will get a chance to discuss it with Porter then. Let's move on to the No Mo May debriefing. I'm imagining, I know Carolyn and Nancy were manning the booth, so to speak. And when I got there towards the end of the morning, it was fairly successful. So Nancy, would you like to lead us in that?
So in the signs, I handed out several yard signs, so I think the public was pretty interested in that. I don't know anything about the Eagle Park mowing. I don't know. Yeah, no information on that. I think that would be through Meredith, maybe. I'm not sure who would know. I'm guessing they just didn't mow for May and then now they're mowing up there at Eagle Park.
Yeah, we didn't follow up on that. I mean, we know they hadn't mowed by the time we did our work day. But that's all.
So, but yeah, I think there was quite a bit of interest. People were grateful for the signs.
Wonderful. Then my personal observation was that we received quite a bit of rain very early on, and I thought, boy, this is gonna put a monkey wrench into things as far as people feeling like they got to get those lawnmowers going. Because I had some different things going on with some grass seed, and I could hold back on that. But other sections of the lawn just took off. So I think there will be, from year to year, just weather impacts that, either going to be more regular and a little bit more easy to follow that guidance of no mow May, and other years where might just sort of spring jumps ahead pretty quickly. Any other comments, thoughts about the no mow May?
Given that it's Meredith who hires the landscaping service that mows, she may have received feedback as to what it was like if in fact they did not mow Eagle Park until the 1st of June. What did that look like? So I think we should ask for her feedback on this.
All right, yeah, let's have that in the notes. And I know that we were originally attempting to see what we could do with a small section, at least in Sycamore, but I think that was tabled for this year. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking ahead, maybe if we continue this to also transition it into more of pollinators as well. So those people that want to mow their lawn, um, focusing on like pollinator plants and things that help the pollinators beyond not mowing.
I think that's a great idea for two reasons. One is there you're giving people an option, so maybe they are going to mow, but they're mowing less of their lawn because they've set aside a section that start beginning a pollinator garden. Um, others thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, this is an educational campaign, right? That we're trying to teach people about a natural part of their environment that by mowing they are disrupting and or destroying. So, I mean, pollinator pathways exist, and we could always just refer interested people to the pollinator pathways project. Is their goal is to plant as many pollinator friendly plants as possible. I don't think they talk specifically about mowing, but I think this is a matter of just getting the word out to people that a monoculture of grass does not benefit any animal except humans. And but I don't know. I'm not proposing an evening seminar at Holly Hall for people to come learn about pollinators. It might be just repeated front porch forum posts with links to information.
There's been some I've seen on front porch forum in New Haven. I think there's actually one today about it, that they've been doing something with pollinator gardens and plants. So
I think you're
there's
right. I recall that as well. I think it's going to be a slow build if it can catch on. It's just, it's not an immediate thing. I think that people are latching onto. I think they're seeing if they can integrate it into all of the other things that need to happen in spring, because you have spring cleanups, you've got just a whole host of other things going on, and but I think as Helen points out, it's a role that we play educationally, and then as Nancy mentions that maybe there's a separate angle, which is uh, the pollinator garden in addition to no mow May. So yeah, if we can make note of that for next year, uh, unless you think it's more timely to somehow have some more discussion about it prior to next May. Um, any other comments about the no mow May?
So, is anyone in communication with Meredith and could ask her for her feedback on Eagle Park and mowing?
I could ask her. I
That'd be
could
great.
send her an email.
Great. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. I was imagining that there would also be a little bit of a debrief about Green Up Day, but I don't see it on the agenda.
Yeah, Carolyn usually does that, and she didn't send all the statistics that she usually presents to us. So I assume we'll do that in September.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. All right, then we will move along to park management plans, progress on reports and discussion. Is that without it being more defined, is that Kristen? Is that the Sycamore Park draft?
Yeah, and I can share my screen.
Sure.
You want to spend some time on that?
By the way, an opening comment is it was very, very well written and very easy to follow, and I think it was very comprehensive. So thank you.
I love reading these management plans because I learned so much about the
Me too.
history and the ecology. And yeah, I'm very appreciative that they exist.
Yeah,
Cool, cool.
It's excellent.
Yeah, and
Kristen-
then, yeah,
Oh, I was gonna say, can you share it or do I need to do something?
I can share it.
Okay.
Let's see. I think I can share. Oh, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay,
You can either
let's
make me a
see.
presenter or you can try and share it for
Let's see,
yourself.
multiple participants can share.
Yeah, that
Is
seems
that
like
what
a
I
good
want?
option.
Yes.
We'll try it. I
Try
clicked it.
that.
Let's try that.
Okay. Oh, now I can do that. Okay.
Okay. I've never been the host, so I don't know.
Exciting. Can everybody see the plan?
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful.
And this is, I just followed the same format as we've used now for Memorial Park and Eagle Park. We have 2 plans already. So I'm using the same exact format, which is really a description of existing conditions, how the park is currently used, any issues that might be there, and therefore management objectives to address those issues. This is boilerplate text in all of our park plans, just describing the role of each of the town commissions or boards or volunteer organizations, and then concrete actions by Conservation Commission, the Rec Department, and the Select Board. And then appendices, and this park we know a lot more about than our other parks. So there's a lot more information here. We've done an ecological evaluation with Eric Sorensen. Dave Henderson and Dave Rosen did some tree inventories in the past. We've had bird inventories and aquatic insect. And that's information that we don't have for our other parks, but we happen to have it for Sycamore. There's a history of the flood that resulted in this park through buyouts of private properties. And so I put newspaper accounts in there just for those who may no longer be very familiar with that history. That was a big flood in '98. And there was a FEMA buyout that occurred after that flood. And so I put the actual agreement in the appendix that specifies that there will be no new structures at the park. And the intention is for it to be a natural area that the town's residents can enjoy. So I just put in a few comments for folks to provide feedback on. I'm going to look up the year that Route 116 bridge was installed. I should remember it, but I don't any longer remember it off the top of my head. Carolyn has had her students collecting aquatic insects at the park, so I asked if she might want to update that information here. Alex and Zaleen know a lot about fish, and so if they want to update the fish section, they could. This is what the park looked like in '95. About 10 homes, and those were all impacted to various degrees during the flood. And they were all bought out after the flood, and that's resulted in the park that we have today. I don't know if I had other places for folks to comment. In terms of issues at the park, in the past, we've had vehicles and ATVs running up and down the beaches. But the gate and the boulders that were installed around 2007, I think it was, really helped to cut down on that kind of activity. There's the gate. And then we also, it's very subtle. We don't see this so much anymore, but they did put in essentially, what do you call these? There's a word for them. And then the word is escaping me at the moment, but essentially
Like a berm?
it's like a berm, but it's a specific kind of berm that's cut through a gravel drive. They're usually done on forest pathways to help divert water.
Right.
But anyway, they were done at this park in order to discourage ATVs and vehicles from driving over to the river. So those have been pretty helpful. We have invasives at the park. Read through this at your leisure and let me know if you'd like this to read differently or not. We do have some ash trees. They're in pretty good shape now, but the Emerald Ash Borer Committee will be watching them. One of the trees is in kind of poor condition. Oh, Helen, I don't know if you had more feedback for this section. I know that you have encountered that landowner that abuts the park. And
Right.
so just read through this.
I did meet with them, and all that we concluded was that they had a right to drive from the parked the gate, which he has a key to, through that well-established little road back to his property. That's basically it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, just let me know if any of this wording should be changed. I did put in a section about accessibility and our work with the Bristol Trail Network and Porter. Just it's kind of enabling language if we do end up deciding that we'd like to support her proposal for ADA trails or other features at the park.
I noticed that there's no mention of the pollinator garden. And I didn't really know where to put it, but
Yeah.
we did plant, establish a pretty large area and got donations from Be the Change, and
Yeah, that's a good thing. I've forgotten that. Could we?
That go under management areas, right where you are now?
It could. So I could just say here, whoops, pollinator garden. I don't know why it's not. Oh, that's. Oh my God. Gardening.
You have gardening in there already.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I must have been thinking about that pollinator garden then. Okay. Cool. So there's that. Just, read through this list. If there are other activities I'm missing that we should add, let me know. And then here are our roles and actions are fairly generic. So continue active involvement as overseers of the park. Continue to coordinate with the select board on, this is a holdover from Eagle Park, sorry.
on design, yeah.
Coordinate Green Up Day cleanups, we do. We maintain the kiosk. We can involve public participation, maybe say something about pollinators here, Helen?
Well, you have 2 up. You say continue to coordinate Green Up Day cleanups, including tending to the perennial garden.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yep.
You want to put perennial pollinator garden?
We got some annuals in there too, right? So I think,
Perfect.
um, and all these are fairly generic as well. This is a holdover. Emerald ash borer, closely monitor. Okay.
Yep.
Good. So I don't want to take a lot of more time on this from folks unless you'd like to, but just send me your comments or your thoughts or suggestions, and at some point we need to forward it to the select board for their review. But we won't be around until September. So it's up to the group what you'd like me to do. I could forward this to the select board in the next couple of weeks once I get comments back from everyone, or we could wait until September to forward it to the select board.
They generally don't have specific questions and a long discussion about it, do they? They read it and say, wow, that's a really wonderful management plan.
Yeah, they usually like for us to come and respond to any questions that they might have. So
I see.
it'll get put on the agenda. They'll read it ahead of time and ask us any questions that they might have.
Got it.
I'm wondering if anyone has any idea of what's on their plate. Would it be better that we present it to them now and so they have, you know, what is it, 2 meetings a month, and they have an opportunity to absorb it within their agendas? Or would it be better served if we waited till September? And maybe that's a busier time for them. I'm not so sure.
I have no idea.
I can ask Valerie, if you like, what she would recommend for. She has a good sense of how full their plate is or not. So.
Do we need a motion to suggest that Kristen can speak with Valerie, and if Valerie feels that it would be wise to submit the I'm not formulating a motion yet. I'm just thinking out loud, but to submit the draft for select board review and approval within the next few months, or if Valerie thinks it's fine and we should wait and then bring it up again at our September meeting.
I don't think we need a motion.
We don't? Okay.
I'm not aware. I don't know. I don't know protocol that well.
Any thoughts, Kristen?
I can just check with Valerie about when she thinks it would be the best time to send this to the select board, and I can report back. That I think a date is fine to report back to folks over email, even with the open meeting law.
All right. So we don't need any motion to send this to the select board. We can just have you decide that it's in coordination with Valerie when the best time would be.
I think so, if everyone agrees.
Okay, that sounds fine to me.
Yeah, Kristen, it looks very complete to me. Is anyone else besides the commission members reviewing it, or have you put it out anyplace else that you're waiting for comments to come back in?
I have not at this time, but it would make sense to have, for example, Porter review it as a representative of the Bristol Trail Network. And the Planning Commission as well. Sometimes we just make the draft available to them at the same time as the select board.
Well, I think, that makes sense. But at the same time, I don't know that it makes that we should prolong it needlessly. So if that were to go through that process and you were to get comments back or no comments or whatever, it seems like, it's pretty well ready to go to the select board otherwise.
And another organization I should have added is the Bristol Rec Department as well. They should take a look because they're co-managing this park with us. So
Well, it seems like the consensus after hearing John is that we leave it in Kristen's good care to pass along to the rec park and then check with Valerie and hopefully move it before the select board sooner than later. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for presenting the finer points that you wanted to cover. And again, thank you for such a great job with putting that document together.
sure, you're welcome.
What happens with these management plans? Are they printed out, or is there any like formal copies made? What's
They do get posted to the town's website, but to my knowledge, they don't. There aren't any copies like printed out to be handed out. But we could talk about that. I mean, maybe it's worth putting a few copies at the town hall for folks that don't have access to the internet or don't want to, prefer to have a printed copy.
I think it would be appropriate to put an announcement either from Carolyn or from Kristen on Front Porch Forum that it's available with a link to the website on the town's website or something.
Yeah, as soon as the select board approves these, because they actually tabled the Eagle Park one because they wanted to save up like 2 or 3 of these reports to review all at once. So there's a pending approval for the Memorial Park plan, the Eagle Park plan, and now the Sycamore Park plan by the select board.
Ah, okay. I think my other thought, Nancy, is that often these are available, obviously sort of as, sort of guidelines, just covering the history, et cetera, and a reference document. And then periodically, someone in Kristen's position takes a look at them every, I don't know, Kristen, 5-10
Yeah.
years, and
5
then
or 10.
updates them, and then they they go on and and just are available to help us, understand what has happened and what needs to continually be done to maintain these parks in good standing. All right, I think that that concludes that part of the management plan discussion. Is there any new business? Is this where John might come in, the Municipal Vulnerability Index?
Yes, yeah, I can give you just a quick briefing on it. There was a meeting last week that I attended with Valerie, and Richard Butts was representing the Energy Commission. It's the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources is contracting with a firm to come up with a vulnerability index, and it has to do with climate change. So our discussion was they were looking for ideas from us on what kind of data, what kind of trends, what kind of things would be useful to include in the index. And it was a very interesting discussion because there was a very broad list of things that, some of the ones that are obvious that like our commission would be interested in would be flooding, major storm events, those kinds of things. But, it went to infrastructure, it went to utilities, anything associated with climate change. So there's drought, there's diseases, things like ticks moving north, a whole bunch of things that the idea is to be able to have a tool. They call it a tool. A lot of it would be related to mapping of the data that they're that they can find and incorporate into maps so that municipalities would be able to look at what the threats are that are likely to occur from climate change. And so it was very interesting. It's in the very initial stages. They're just collecting what the information about what we think would be useful for the communities to look at and be aware of. It's probably about a year-long process, and they're meeting. Bristol was selected as one municipality. There's several others. They're meeting with county agencies, planning agencies, the utility companies to develop this index, and then they'll have a sort of a draft working thing, and then we'll be invited back to review that, provide comments. But I think it could be useful, certainly for the town, certainly for the somebody like a planning commission. But it could be useful for certainly our commission in looking at some of the long-term trends and what climate change is likely to bring in terms of managing. The types of vegetation is likely to change over time. So those are kind of things that we should be aware of. So just a whole host of things that bring to people's attention that maybe isn't really on their radar at this point. So anyways, I think I thought it was a worthwhile investment of time, and hopefully the product that results from that will be useful.
John, who organized this?
Well, it's Vermont Agency of Natural Resources.
Great. Okay.
They're the ones that are in charge of it. They have contracted with a firm to develop the index. So as I said, the meeting was with the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, this company. Valerie was there representing the town, and so as I said, this was just one of many meetings that they're having to provide input for this tool that they want to develop.
Do you know if there's information online about this that we could just include a link in the minutes?
There, other than some emails that I've gotten, I just got an email today that there's going to be another broader meeting that's available if people want to attend. I could include that or forward that, I guess.
Yeah, so I just did a search for Vermont Municipal Vulnerability Index.
Right.
And it's a 3-page document that talks about the 6-point scale that will be evaluated. I'm just wondering if people want more information about.
Yeah, I don't know about that. They didn't. This was all. It all happened pretty quick through some email links, and I actually would be interested in seeing that.
Okay, why don't I send this to you?
Okay.
And if this looks like it's a good description of what they're doing, then I'll just include the link in the minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
And if it's way off board, then we'll just go somewhere else.
Okay. Right. Sure.
Okay, so I'll send this to you.
Okay.
Great.
The recent weather concern that was noted, I want to say in the last couple weeks, I heard it on NPR or VPR, the radio, was basically about there's the expectation that wind speeds and frequency of wind events are going to be greater in Vermont and New England in general. And I think we've already witnessed that with the storm back in December. If you drive River Road towards Middlebury, you'll see all those barns with the metal roofs that are just peeled right up. So I could see the document being very helpful as an advisory, saying we think these are things that are coming our way, and I can tell you, I'm thinking about the barns that I have here on the property, and they are secured by nails. And I've had one peel up, not in that December storm. Prior to that, but I'm thinking about getting up there with screws to fasten them down much more tightly. And so that's just one example. But I'm glad that there is some work going on in the area, because people need to be thinking ahead and act preventatively to and so we're not caught off guard. I mean, we're already going to be trying to tightrope the effects. So thank you,
Right.
John, for being
Yes.
able to go ahead and be a new member to jump right in on our behalf to keep us abreast of that important work.
Sure.
So any more thoughts about that summation from John on the MVI tool for Vermont? Well, we are at about 7:20. So unless there is some other discussion, I see here that we are looking at our next meeting, September 14th. It looks like we're continuing to stick with the six o'clock. I always have been a little bit more of an advocate for 7, because I could have still been out there, although the rain was pushing me inside for this meeting. And that we would potentially be in the pavilion, and that might be that Sean would be there with
Zach.
Well, Sean is the guy that does the TV.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
So Zach hopefully could be in attendance through the rec park. And John, are you familiar with the pavilion near the what's referred to as the hub?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Are there any more comments? We all have a few things to do prior to or after this meeting. I know I'm getting that email out to the one correspondence. So if there aren't any other questions or comments, we can adjourn.
And I'll just be in touch with folks about the schedule for moving the perennials from Eagle Park as soon as we have a sense of what that construction schedule will be.
That'd be great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Tremendous. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Yeah.
I think it was a well-rounded meeting with everybody having a chance to have some contributions. So we will adjourn, and it is 7:22.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
That would be wonderful. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Great.
Do we have a second?
Second,
I'll second if you like, or John.
third it.
Well, we can either accept John or Kristen for the second. Thank you. We did start the meeting with a motion to begin, and now we have all in favor of adjournment.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John,
Thanks,
for
John.
stepping in.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I like a surprise opportunity. So, all right, have a wonderful weekend, and we're almost there. Thank you
Yep.
so much.
Thank you.
you.